हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू द चैनल। सभी का स्वागत करता हूँ इस चैनल पे जिसका नाम है जेडी स्टडीज। Now, in the previous lecture, we will learn some different types of concepts like capacity, what is risk, what is vulnerability, and what is hazard. Okay, and we can learn different concept of and definition of disaster management. Okay, in today's lecture, we will learn the concept of disaster management. So, what is disaster management? Okay, first of all, if you don't watch that video, then I prefer you to first watch that video and then come on to this video. I can give the video link into the I button. Okay, so what is disaster management? What the concept of disaster management say? So disaster management is what? Disaster management is a planning steps. Okay, planning steps which is used to minimize the effect of disaster and to be able to process the business continuity state. Okay, this is the concept of disaster management. Okay, in another word, disaster management includes the sum of total all the activities, program, and measures which can be taken up before, during, and after a disaster with the purpose of avoiding, reducing, and the impact, or we can say the recovery from its losses. Okay, this is the another definition, or we can say another concept of the disaster management. So, okay, and next, what is disaster management? Again, if you can ask me what is disaster management, then I can give your answer. Disaster management means managing resources and various responsibilities to deal with all humanitarian aspects or in the emergencies. It's called the disaster management. Okay, disaster management have include the preparedness before the disaster, response, and recovery. In example, to rebuild and supporting the society. Okay, so what is the purpose of this disaster management? Nothing but to minimize the effect of disaster. Okay, so what is the aims of this disaster management? So there are three main aims for disaster management. So what is the first aim? First aim is to reduce the potential losses, okay, or we can say to avoid some losses which are occurred from the hazard. Just like these are the examples of the various types of disaster. Okay, uh, earthquake, volcanoes, okay, tsunamis, landslide, hurricanes, tornado, dust storm. These are some various types of disaster. Okay, so aim of the disaster management is nothing to reduce the potential losses from hazard. Second aim is to assure prompt and appropriate assistance to victims when necessary. Okay, and third one is to achieve rapid and durable recovery. These are the three main aims which we can say use for the disaster management. Okay, now these are the three main aims which I already explained to you. Now next is importance of disaster management. So why we need the disaster management? Okay. So over past 20 years, a disaster have affected mainly 4.4 billion people. Okay, and it caused the $2 trillion damage and 1.3 lakh, or we can say 1.3 million people. Okay. These losses have outstepped the total value of official development assistance in the same period. Okay. So natural disaster disappropriately affect people living in the developing countries and the most vulnerable communities those countries. So at the global level, there has been some considerable concern over this natural disaster. So even if you are scientist, or even if I am scientist, or somebody can scientist, nobody can predict where, when the natural disaster occurred. Okay, so we have to prepare. We have to prepare in advance. Okay, so for the preparedness, uh, we can say the earlier we have this disaster management. Okay, India has been traditionally vulnerable to natural disaster on account of its unique geoclimatic condition. As you know that we have also some natural disasters like more rains, okay, like landslides in a Himachal Pradesh, like earthquake in a Kutch, okay, floods, okay. So these are the natural disasters which we cannot predict. Anyone on this earth cannot predict this natural disaster. Okay, but we have to prepare for this. Okay, so what is the importance of? Okay, I can already explain now. There are some phases of disaster management. Okay, disaster management activities can be grouped into 5 phases that are related to time and function to all types of emergencies and disasters. And these phases are also related to each other, and each involves the different type of skills. Phases are, what are the phases? There are mainly 4 phases. Okay. First one is planning and mitigation. Second is preparedness. Third one is response, and fourth one is recovery. So these are the 4 types. Okay, and this is the chart. Okay, with the help of this chart, we easily learn what is the phases of disaster management. 4 phases, as I say, planning and mitigation phases. Okay. You can see in the uh, in this mitigation phase, or we can say planning phase. This is preparedness phase. Okay, this is response phase, and this is recovery phase. These 4 phases are used in disaster management, or we can say whenever we learn about this disaster management, we must know about these phases. Okay, and these phases are also relatable to each other. Okay, you have to learn it one by one. We can learn about the planning and mitigation, what is the preparedness, what is the response phase, what is recovery phase. Okay, so first of all, we learn about the planning phase. So what is planning phase, and what we do in planning phase? So as you can see on the screen, first point is activity, necessity of activity. Okay, to analyze and document, and the possibility of an emergency or disaster, and the potential consequences or impact on life, property, and environment. Okay. So what we can do in a planning phase? First of all, we analyze how much emergency, or how much oh, sorry, what is the possibility of disaster can be occurred, okay, in our life, or what is the impact of this disaster in somebody's life, in somebody's property, or in environment. So we have to analyze and document it, okay, in the planning phase. Okay, planning phase also include the assessing the hazard, risk mitigation, okay, response and recovery needs. Okay, so planning phase also considers the hazard, risk mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery needs. Okay, so we have to plan. Okay, one example I can give you. If somebody have to move from one place to another place, okay, so he have some plan in his mind. Okay, so which place I have to move. Okay, from what time it consume. Okay, so these are the all plannings. Then how can I uh, how can I go to this place from this place. So this all in this mind. So this is the planning phase. Another one is mitigation phase. As I can give you some examples of mitigation phase. First of all, before the we can go on the example, what is mitigation phase and what we do in mitigation phase. So activities that actually eliminated or we can say reduce the probability of disaster is mitigation. Okay? If now coming on to the example, if somebody goes to this point to this point, okay, I can use the pen, this point to this point, okay, and he have the three paths just like this. Okay, he knew that he knew that this path, okay, this path is straight, but he also knew that this path has a many obstacles. Okay, or we can say many uh, just like many obstacles. Okay, he also know that I have a two extra path, or we can say I have a two another path which we can follow, which I can follow and go to the at this point. Okay, so he can analyze from this path that this is the safer path, second number path. This one is first path. This one is third path. Okay, so second path is more safer than the first, and he also knew that the third one is completely safer than the other two paths. So what he or she can done, he already knew that the third one path is more safer, or we can say safest path. So he can take the third path, even if the third path is more lengthy. Okay, so mitigation is something like that, in which we can mitigate. In a mitigation, we can actually eliminate or reduce the probability of the disaster. Okay, or mitigation phase includes long-term activities to design to reduce the effect of unavoidable disaster, like the landslide. Okay, like the we can say tornado, like flood. Okay, so it includes the long-term activity design. Okay, I can give you one example. Japan. Japan. Okay, Japan having the house of, you can say, the tree or something, wood, wooden. They have the wooden मकान है उनके पास. Okay, so mitigation phase, they have planned. Okay, they knew that our area is more flooding, or we can say flood is coming very time. Okay, so they can build their houses from the sorry. Okay, they have plan. Now mitigation phase is completed. Next phase is preparedness phase. So what is preparedness phase? So preparedness phase is activity necessary to extend that mitigation measures have not or cannot or prevent the disaster. So as per the name preparedness, we have to prepare before the uh, uh, before the disaster, or we can say hazard is occurred. Okay? So in the preparedness phase, governments, organization, and individual develops plans to save life and minimize this disaster damage. For example, compiling resource inventories. Okay, every state has a resource inventory itself. Okay, so whenever necessary, they have used that resources to the people. Okay, second example is installing early warning systems. Okay, and preparing predetermined emergency response forces. Okay, we have NDRF, we have NDRF team, or just like this hazard, and to avoid this disaster. Okay, or to save people life in this type of disaster. Okay, preparedness also measures to enhance the disaster response operation. Okay, so this is all about this preparedness phase. Okay, what I can say, I can write it here, you have to just note it down. Okay, next phase is response phase. So what is response phase? So activities following an emergency or disaster. Okay, so we have to respond, or we have to act fast according to our hazard or our disaster. So this is called the response, and this all activities come into this response phase. Okay, so response phases, in the response phases, the activities are designed to provide emergency assistance for the victims, just like to search and rescue, emergency center, okay, medical care, and mass feeding. This all activities are considered in the response phase. Okay, they also seek to stabilize the situations and reduce the probability of secondary damage. Just example is shutting off the contaminated water supply sources, or we can say second example is securing and patrolling areas. Okay, so these are the probability of secondary damage example. Okay, so in the response phase, we have to learn this kind of things. Okay, and then last phase is recovery phase. So what is recovery phase? So activity necessary to return all the system to normal or better. This these things, or we can say this activity covers in a recovery phase. Okay, recovery phase having the two sets of activities: short term recovery, or we can say long term recovery. So what is short term recovery? Short term recovery activities include the return vital life support system to minimum operating standard. Example, for example, we can say cleanup, or we can say temporary housing, okay, and to access to food and water. Okay, example, as you know, when earthquake occurred to the Kutch in the Bhuj, so they have to prepare, they have to recover. Okay, they have built NDRF team, which is built the tent, or we can say a shelter. Okay, and temporary house, and give people to food or water, something like this. Okay, so these all activities recovered in a recovery phases. Okay, now back to the activities. Short-term activity, short-term recovery I can complete. Next is long-term recovery. So in the long-term recovery, activities may continue for a number of years after a disaster, and their purpose is to return the life to normal, or we can say improved level. For example, redevelopment loans, or legal assistance, or community planning. Okay, these are the long-term recovery activities. Okay, so two sets of activities I can cover here. So here four phases of disaster management is completed. For today's lecture, we have to put it here. For the next lecture, there is only one topic in is one topic is remaining. So what is the foundation of emergency management? We can cover in the next lecture. Okay. So please hit like button and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so you can get the notification while I am uploading a new video. Okay. So please subscribe to my channel.